Hello, everyone. So we are live and welcome again on Youth and Diplomacy Talks. This is the chain of webinars, and I'm Nina Gogoria, Georgia's youth representative to the United Nations, and today I will be moderating the session. We have a special guest for today, dear Ambassador. Thank you for finding time in your busy schedule and being ready to share your expertise and experience to our guests and all the youth. Our guest speaker today is Mikhail Milinar, who is ambassador and permanent representative of Slovakia to the United Nations. I will give a brief introduction about our invited guest, but before that, I want to pass the mic to the founders of the network to get to know a little bit about the project and the organization itself.
Thank you, Nino. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ambassador. Welcome to our Youth and Diplomacy Talks. Welcome, young leaders, to our fifth Youth and Diplomacy Talks. It's an honor to have you and Ambassador in this series of talks. My name is Ramiz Bakhtiar. I'm one of the founders of the global network of former youth delegates to the United Nations. I was Afghanistan's first youth representative to the UN in 2018 and 19. And together with my friend and colleague Lika, we initiated the idea to establish this network because after our mandate, we realized that there was no mechanism or platform at the UN to keep UNU delegates involved and engaged after their mandate was finished. And we wanted to step in and bridge this gap. In August 2020, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, we started with a global consultation with former enacting UNU delegates, and we were able to include roughly 100 UNU delegates from 40 plus countries. And the result of those consultations is today the global network of former UNU delegates to the United Nations. And I'm proud to say that we have obtained formal authorization from the United Nations, from the legal office of the United Nations, to have the United Nations name with our network. Our members come from different countries, and we're also working together with young leaders around the world who are not UNU delegates but have interest in the work of the United Nations and are interested in the UNU delegate programs and diplomacy and international development. My friend and colleague Lika will tell you more about the Youth and Diplomacy Talks initiative. Lika, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ramiz, and thank you, Ambassador, for joining us today. Very briefly about Youth and Diplomacy Talks initiative. Youth and Diplomacy is a series of conversations between UN youth delegates, young leaders from all over the world, and former and current UN ambassadors. As Ramiz mentioned, we realized after our mandates that not only there are no mechanisms for us to stay involved, but also there are not many platforms where young people can talk to their decision makers and representatives. There are no platforms where we can engage in a dialogue and give our suggestions. So obviously we decided to try and bridge that gap with this project. So the idea right now is to initiate these talks where we can hear the stories of diplomatic journey of UN ambassadors, but also ask questions, talk about pressing current issues, but also give some suggestions about how youth can be more included efficiently in the UN decision making. So we already had youth and diplomacy talks with the ambassadors of Georgia, Israel, Canada, Ukraine. So this is our fifth youth and diplomacy talk. And we're hoping to continue this initiative in the future and even have ambitious goals of bringing ambassadors from countries in conflict for a dialogue. So hopefully this project and initiative will continue and evolve. And welcome and thank you very much for being our guest speaker today, Ambassador.
Thank you, Liga and Ramiz, for your introduction and underlining the importance of this platform and these spaces. So for our attendees to know a little bit more about our ambassador, I'm going to give you a little introduction. Ambassador is the permanent representative of Slovakia to the United Nations in New York since August 2017. And he also has been a vice chair of the UN Peacebuilding Commission, and as well as a deputy permanent representative of Slovakia to the United Nations in New York. He was political coordinator of Slovakia's diplomatic team on the UN Security Council. He has been a member of Slovakia's Foreign Service since September 2000, and as well he holds PhD and master's degree in applied in linguistics and teaching foreign languages. I guess for the next 1 hour and a half will be very inspiring, mindful, and full of learning points. So with this, I want to give our virtual space for the speech to our ambassador, and with the opening remarks, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much, dear friends, to all of you, to the initiators, Lika and Ramiz, as well as to moderator, to Nino, for this great introduction, and congratulations on this important initiative, which I have known about for quite some time already. I talked to my colleagues, the ambassadors of Canada, Georgia, Israel, about their previous experience. So it's really an honor for me to be the next one, and I very much look forward to engaging, to sharing, of course, as much as I can about youth policies and a lot of other related issues. I really appreciate this opportunity for fruitful and I hope also meaningful dialogue, which is indeed timely for a number of good reasons. Before going into that, I just want to say that maybe I will divide my introductory remarks into a more formal part, where I will focus on the issue of the youth within the UN agenda, and give some opinions, some reflections, and secondly, maybe a bit more informal part, where I will be happy to share some of my experience or some personal opinions, potentially advice regarding engagement of the youth in the diplomatic world. So. First of all, with the more formal part, we are still living in the era fighting this unfortunate and unexpected invisible enemy, COVID-19, that has caused severe negative impact in our societies and for everybody in the whole world. Hopefully, we are already moving to some better times, and hopefully we'll be able to meet again more and more in person. But for events like this, the virtual mode is, of course, something which is both positive and practical, and it allows young people from pretty much all over the world to connect like this. But of course, I do believe that nothing can replace normal human contact and normal human relations, and also for that reason, I do hope that that we will also be able to meet in person, hopefully sometime next year. In the diplomatic world, it's the same. You can do a lot of work virtually. You can organize briefings. You can invite speakers and engage with them, but you cannot really fully operate in negotiations or in some more sensitive processes where you really need to sit down and look for solutions. So let's hope that things will be developing soon in a better way. In terms of the youth agenda within the UN, Slovakia and myself, we have really worked very hard in the recent years to promote, I would say, especially the following three principles in the UN concerning the youth agenda: participation, coordination, and contribution. And if I may, I would like to briefly dwell on those three. First, participation, the right to participate in public affairs for young people in particular, is not only recognized by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, but it has also proven to be beneficial as young people can bring different perspectives, new ideas, and often also some unconventional solutions, which I believe we really need to be open for. Second, coordination. There have been many initiatives in different parts of the world that aim to engage, empower, and create space for young people. These are often led by enthusiasts or volunteers, not necessarily always with formal planning, funding, or support. And that's where the governments and the United Nations, but also regional organizations such as the European Union, the African Union, and others should step in by developing dedicated roadmaps, creating partnerships and networks, but also ensuring adequate funding or financing for these important efforts. Because only through effective coordination, especially at challenging times, at local, national, and international level, and by a truly inclusive approach of all stakeholders, we can achieve real and sustainable results. And the last one on contribution. I really do believe that today, more than ever, it is important that young people are invited to attend and to speak and to directly participate in all the relevant processes, without exception. We need to provide them with adequate space to actively contribute to those efforts. And most of all, we need to be better listeners to what you are telling us. It's not always easy. We struggle with that at the United Nations often, also amongst ourselves, because we are driven by too many processes and too many activities, and sometimes we don't really have enough time to not only to speak but also to listen. And as a linguist by training, I know very well that for communication and understanding to be complete, you need 4 communication language skills, and listening is an important part of the 4. Without young people being heard and invited to actively participate and contribute to the UN work, we cannot achieve our goals, and we will not complete fully what we have committed ourselves to. Of course, as you know, crucial step in the right direction, I believe, has been the UN Youth 2030 strategy, which was launched by Secretary General Guterres in September of 2018. We remember it very well. We have just celebrated the 3rd anniversary, and Slovakia was among the 5 co-hosts of an important event at the 3rd anniversary. Since then, since 2018, the UN has strengthened its ability to support youth leadership at various levels across the strategy and its priority areas of advocacy, health and education, economic empowerment, peace and security, human rights. And of course, we need to continue in the same spirit. And maybe it's not bad, it will be useful to also remind ourselves of what Secretary General Guterres said at the opening of the youth strategy. And I quote, with Youth 2030, I want the UN to become a leader in working with young people, in understanding their needs, in helping to put their ideas into action, in ensuring their views inform our processes. That's the end of quote. And I would add, not only to inform our processes, but to directly participate in our processes. That's really a key issue for us to focus on. Well, of course, we need to turn the plan into action, and 3 years of the UN Youth Strategy have shown us how to do that. We still have a lot more to do, but I do believe that we are on the right track. Very recently, as I'm sure you know, Secretary General also has launched his really groundbreaking report entitled Our Common Agenda. And right now here at the UN, we are extremely busy studying this important document and seeing how best to turn it into practical measures and practical solutions. That report contains some 90 recommendations on how to deal with some of the most pressing and most serious challenges that we are facing, starting with climate change, continuing with migration, conflicts and other important challenges, but also including looking at how to involve young people in particular more into our everyday work. This has reacted to 12 commitments identified in the declaration of the 75th anniversary of the UN. And as I said, really, we need to look at the practical solutions. And solidarity with young and future generations is really a prominent part of the report, which contains proposals how to give young people a voice at all levels of decision-making, transform education systems, and ensure the availability of decent jobs and other important opportunities for the young people. I will not go into too many details. Of course, if you are interested in hearing more about our common agenda, I will be more than happy to go into further details. Let me just say that there is a Transforming Education Summit envisaged in 2022. There is also other summits envisaged in 2023 and 2025. There is a proposal for the appointment of a new special envoy for future generations and the establishment of a dedicated UN Youth Office to integrate the activities of the Office of the Envoy on Youth, which we have currently, but also continue the high-level advocacy and to serve as the anchor for United Nations system coordination and accountability on all UN matters related to all three pillars of the work of the UN. And last but not least, so-called repurposing of the UN Trusteeship Council that could look more into how succeeding generations can use their voice. So these would be some of the thoughts that I wanted to include in the formal part. And now, very briefly moving to the informal part, I really cannot start otherwise but by saying that in some ways I wish I would be young like you are in today's world, and not in the previous era when I was actually young. Because as you may know, I grew up in the communist regime in former Czechoslovakia in the 70s and 80s, and at that time we could hardly even dream about opportunities that we are talking about today. And that, for that reason, it has really been my very strong personal commitment to help create those opportunities and to support young people, whether it's youth delegates from Slovakia, from other countries, whether it's interns or youth advisors or other young people that are involved with us through various visits, through exchanges and other programs to really enable, to the extent possible, such opportunities for them, because it is through opportunities like that, including maybe like this conversation today, that that we can really have some additional added value, and we can make a little bit of a difference, hopefully, for many, especially those who live in conditions which can hardly be characterized as standard or as positive. People in developing countries, or some of the most vulnerable and most underprivileged. Because when I grew up, the communist regime was not interested in anything else but keeping people under control. And of course, this is luckily very different today. And people like my own generation really need to do their utmost to ensure that those opportunities are real and tangible, and that that they work. So of course, this has various aspects, but I thought that was important to mention. Of course, we have some wonderful opportunities today, such as the European Union program entitled Erasmus. Some of you who are university students definitely are very familiar with Erasmus, which creates excellent opportunity for young people to travel, to engage in mutual understanding programs, cultural exchange, and all that. At my own foreign ministry, we have recently created a new summer school of diplomacy for the first time this summer, actually. It's called Stefan Osuski Summer School of Diplomacy. And we do hope that this particular tool will be an important contribution to preparing future diplomats. Of course, I have already mentioned the Youth Delegate program. All of you, or many of you, have been part of it. And I have to say that when I arrived back in New York in 2017, and when I realized that at that point we had no youth delegate program, I very much focused on reinstating our youth delegate program, and we have been able to have it since 2018, and certainly I hope that that it will continue growing. I mentioned the Fulbright experience that I was fortunate enough of having as a young teacher more than 20 years ago. And the Fulbright exchange program, which is a United States driven program of exchanges with pretty much the rest of the world, creates really excellent opportunities for students, but also for researchers, teachers, and others. I was fortunate enough to spend 1 year at UCLA in California, and really it is to a great extent this program that has launched me to the next period, so to say. And it is the values of that program, peace and international understanding, that have the same values as the diplomatic profession. And let me conclude by two last elements before then opening for your questions. It is also when I served as my country's ambassador to Kenya and 11 other countries of the region, when I realized how important it is to engage with young people. That experience serving in Africa was truly a defining one for me. During that period, I visited a lot of universities, engaged in a lot of discussions with young people. We also supported a lot of health education and mutual understanding programs through our development cooperation. And it was really, to a large extent, my mission to ensure that we share also with the young people in Kenya about the life in my own country, in Slovakia, but also in the European Union. At that time, I was trying to move some of the practical work to the next level, and we created a program which we called Ambassadors of Change, because I do really believe that when you empower young people and when you offer them opportunities, they are the ones who are the best ambassadors of change, because they are not inhibited by fear or by some other worries about how to do things, or if they are possible or not. And I was really thrilled to see that with very little, we were often able to make a huge difference. We included in the program young people from several secondary schools or high schools in Kenya, and we offered them an opportunity to come up with their own suggestions for potential solutions of issues that were most pressing for them in their schools, in their communities, in their regions, or in the whole country. And then we enabled them to visit the capital city, Nairobi, to visit our embassy and the UN office in Nairobi, and to see if and how they can best turn their practical solutions that they were thinking about into real life. And I was myself surprised how well it worked and how little was necessary to support young people and to provide them not only with the opportunities, but I would say with some additional wings that they could spread and move to the next level. Let me conclude with my last thought, and that would be on critical thinking. I really would like to encourage all of you to apply critical thinking in your work. As a young generation at this age, you discover and process a large amount of information. Sometimes the information is not necessarily reliable enough or credible enough, but we live in an era of challenges also in that context. At the same time, you are facing risks of forming opinions based on not fully verified, sometimes misleading or incorrect information. So in my view, it is really through the application of critical thinking and ability to sort out the best information that is also a crucial part of success of every diplomat or every potential future diplomat for some of you. I'm also convinced that this approach will likewise help you to make better decisions, more accurately express your opinion, and better interpersonal relations. Indeed, it is through critical thinking that you can be more successful also in public life or in public service. Because I do believe that young people like you are engaging in events like that because you are committed to serving the people. And that's exactly what my own firm commitment and full dedication is. So let me leave it at that for now, and I return the floor back to our able moderator to pick up from here, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very inspiring, and while listening to you, especially when you were talking about the opportunities that youth have, I also remembered back then in 2017, where was my first international conference, which was exactly in Slovakia, through the organization ISEC. So the ones who don't know, this is the hugest youth-run organization, which also aims to activate and strive for peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential. And It was exactly happening in Slovakia, in Bratislava, when in 2017 I was there. And you mentioned a lot about the skills that youth needs. And here is where my question is kind of also going to. As you also have experience, huge experience working with youth and knowing their needs, what do you think, except critical thinking, what are these skills that new world requires from youth? And what are the skills that we need to have, maybe soft skills or any hard skills to step up to the future? And meanwhile, I also remind to our attendees to type the questions. I already have some questions received in a row and will give you the floor. But as well, if you have questions, you can also type. And yeah, I will return back to the ambassador with the questions about the skills needed for the new world.
Yes, thanks very much, Nino. Indeed, when we are talking about opportunities and training in particular, we should focus on the right skill set for the 21st century. And it will probably not surprise you when I say that to me it starts with communication skills. And those, especially now in the COVID era, seem to be a little bit crippled in different ways. We are used to communicating through virtual channels, through WhatsApps and other similar platforms, but we are not necessarily always engaging in communication that really allows us to also understand properly the other side. And we see how often there are misunderstandings or misperceptions only due to the fact that we are not really properly able to communicate and to make assessments. So communication skills are key. And I think they should not be underestimated, whether it's for the world of diplomacy, but also for other professions or for other areas. These are critical. Then it goes hand in hand with empathy. For us to successfully really achieve some change and some progress, I think we need to be able to empathize well. And of course, that also goes hand in hand with solidarity. And last but not least, with being humble and putting the interest of the people, the good of the people, the needs of the people first, before my own personal requirements or ideas. It's difficult. It's difficult, but at the same time, it's doable. And often it's doable when we realize that before putting our own personal preferences, we should better understand the needs of others. And I think if we can promote these values of mutual understanding, solidarity, empathy, and communication, I think we can really make a substantial contribution to making this world a more stable and more prosperous one, and maybe even more beautiful one. But of course, the beauty, I think, is a little bit secondary. Depends which way you look at it, of course. Back to you.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more with what you said. And I guess that's also non-negotiable for having leadership skills. Yeah, it's kind of part of which creates a great leader. Thank you so much for your answer. I see Esma's hand. So Esma, you can ask the question.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And Your Excellency, first of all, thank you very much for these insightful words. And I also could not agree more that we need values-based people maybe more than ever today, and there is high demand on such people. I also would really say how amazing it is that actually you were the one who pushed forward and lobbied for the UN Youth Delegate Program re-establishment in Slovakia. I have been in Slovakia this summer. We were opening the European Democracy Youth Network headquarters there, and that is another network which unites a lot of people, young leaders from Eastern Europe and the Balkans as well. I just have a question, because you were so active in bringing the UN Youth Delegate Program about. Due to the COVID restrictions, as we all know, I would say first thing that suffered at the UN was youth participation. In 2020, there were no UN youth delegates who actually made it to the General Assembly physically, and many were involved virtually. This year, actually, even less people were involved, even virtually. So my question is, as the pandemic might continue, do you think it would be still possible, and how would it be possible to re-establish the tradition of bringing UN youth delegates to General Assembly? Because after all, this is UN Youth Delegate Program, so it means that these people have to do something with the UN at least. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Esma. I will be brief. Indeed, I cannot agree more with you. It's been a setback due to COVID that people were not able to travel and to come to New York. And of course, that includes young people in the Youth Delegate Program. We have tried to do our best through the virtual channels last year and this year. And you know, I'm sure that there are various events, side events that are organized in the framework of the third committee, but in other frameworks as well. But yes, you are right that they do not quite replace the full-fledged participation of the delegates in the work of the General Assembly, the third committee in particular. I do have a hope that maybe at least for the April Youth Forum of ECOSOC, that it would be possible, or it should be possible, for at least some UN youth delegates to come to New York also physically, or that by then we will have been able to open up a bit more. We certainly will be supporting that. I know that our own youth delegates that we have this year for this session and the previous session, unfortunately, they have not been able to travel to New York, which is not good. But unfortunately, there is no other magic formula right now due to COVID. But you know, through other channels and other events, hopefully we can compensate at least partially. But you know, for the same reasons, platforms like yours are so important and so useful. So I also want to encourage you to continue using this platform, or to be active in all the other platforms that you have, and let's share information also together about events and about initiatives that can connect young people even better, or you know, where young people can really have a voice. I can also add that actually the following week, not next week, but in 2 weeks, I will be hosting a good group of ambassadors and the UN Youth Envoy, Jayatma, for a strategic discussion about how we are going to implement further the UN Youth 2030 agenda, and what our common agenda, the report, really brings for young people. And I or we will be more than happy to share with you at some point maybe some further additional thoughts about the outcomes of these strategic discussions, or maybe we will do another event like we did a few weeks ago, where we can invite young people like you to engage with us on some of these practical ideas, which are also contained in the report, Our Common Agenda. It doesn't necessarily always need to be a formal event that we have to, prepare in a complicated way. Sometimes it can really only be an unscripted discussion, very authentic, very operational. I'm certainly open for that. And I mentioned that there are 5 of us, 5 member states, working together as a support group, so to say. We don't have any formal name though, but kind of a support group of the UN Youth Envoy of Jayatma and her office. Of course, it's not about the person; it's more about the office and the institution that we are supporting. And the 5 of us, there is one of us from each regional group: El Salvador, Rwanda, Portugal, Sri Lanka, and Slovakia. The 5 of us working together and coordinating all these efforts. So maybe I can invite all 5 ambassadors, because Slovakia has been coordinating this group of 5 for a similar, as I said, unscripted or kind of impromptu discussion on some of the similar issues. I'm just throwing that as an idea. And just one more point which was mentioned: leadership skills. Obviously, leadership skills are critical, especially in today's world when we face serious leadership crises. And I think we see it too often all around us, because political leaders too often think about the next election period, or the opportunity for them to be re-elected, rather than the long-term and strategic interest of the country, of its people, and of course of the world. And we really miss long-term leaders, or leaders with long-term visions and perspectives that look beyond the next elections or the next 4 years, and that are able to stand up and even address some of the most challenging issues with strength and with wisdom, but also with courage. That is something which is also missing. It's easier not to tackle some issues because they are not popular or because they are difficult. But unfortunately, they will not disappear when we decide not to talk about them enough. On the contrary, they grow in size and in seriousness. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the answer, and as well for the question, Esma, because we touched a very important point, which means youth engagement. And as well, it was very well said about the leadership as well, because I guess what this year also taught us, even though we're not able to, let's say, as active UN-wide to travel to New York, it also pushed us to think outside of the box. What else can we do to activate leadership and engage each other and support each other? And it also pushed us to be creative. So thank you for that. And it also made us think about the core question, which is why. As Simon Sinek says, everything starts with why. So it also pushed us to ask many questions to ourselves and dig deeper to our core vision and core mission. So thank you for the answer. And with this, I will pass the mic to the Lika, who has the question. And yes.
Ambassador, you shared amazing ideas with us about possibility of future collaboration, and I'm really happy that you are indeed one of those ambassadors who actually does care about youth inclusion and youth and working with young people. And definitely it would be very interesting for us to invite your colleagues and other ambassadors that also work together with the Youth Envoy in a similar format, or maybe even more of a brainstorming session, because our member Nino is actually currently working on a document for suggestions of how to improve youth delegate program together with other youth delegates. So there is quite a lot that we could suggest or brainstorm. So definitely we would be really interested in that. And following up to some of your thoughts that you've been sharing with us, it would be interesting to hear your opinion about how young people can be more involved at the UN level. Obviously, Youth Delegate Program is brilliant, is a brilliant initiative, but unfortunately, a lot of countries do not have the program, and not every country is lucky enough to have an ambassador like you who would initiate the program in the country. For instance, in some countries, us young people are the ones who hold the government accountable to start supporting the program, and we are the ones who initiate that. So it's very different. A lot of countries still don't have the program, and youth voices are heard at the UN more than 20 years ago, for instance, but definitely there is a long road still, and it would be interesting to hear your opinion about how it can be amplified and how young people can be more involved, because it's a two-way solution, of course. First of all, we have to push for it, obviously, and we need to want to be involved. But at the same time, it's not an easy structure to get into. The UN has a very specific requirement for young people to start working at the United Nations, which it's a barrier for younger people to be a part of the organization. But sometimes there is will and there are ideas and not many opportunities to get inside. So it would be interesting to hear your opinion about how we can actually leave no one behind.
Yes, thanks very much. Indeed, we need to turn the leave no one behind into real situations. It cannot only be a phrase without proper meaning. And I have seen in the chat, as Esma has expressed clearly, that certainly young people should not be left behind first and foremost. That's for sure. No, but in practical terms, this is indeed what the Secretary General's report, Our Common Agenda, also addresses. How to what we call strengthen the institutional framework that the UN has for the youth. And of course, it has different perspectives. I have mentioned that Secretary General proposes creation of the new UN Youth Office that would be the one-stop shop in a way. Yes, where all these initiatives and all the important information would be centered. And of course, that office would be the if you will, the catalyst of youth programs across the UN system. But of course, it's not enough. What we really need to do is to better streamline the youth aspects pretty much in every part of the UN work. I don't think the solution is to create new structures or create new positions everywhere, like a youth advisor everywhere. Yes, in some cases it's necessary and it's useful, but what really is more long-term and more sustainable is that the youth policies are really better streamlined into all the work that the UN does, and that of course that UN also then facilitates for many of the national governments. And here, when I say UN, I mean also, of course, the agencies such as UNDP, UNICEF, UN Women, and others. And this is where some of the most challenges lie. That in the UN Secretariat, it's kind of easier to achieve, but it's much more challenging to ensure that the youth policies are streamlined through all the agencies. As you know, there is now the so-called resident coordinator system in the field, and for the time being, 10 fast-track countries have been selected with the resident coordinators to fast-track the youth policies. Some of them include countries such as Uzbekistan and others. I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me right now. There was, I think, Honduras from Latin America. I think there was Uganda from East Africa and others. So for the time being, there was 10 fast-track countries really to learn about how to successfully streamline the youth agenda better into everything that the UN does in the field. So that's one perspective, and really it is far more important to achieve results in the field on the ground than, of course, than here in New York at the UN Secretariat, because this is where real people are impacted in a practical way. And then, but you have mentioned some of the other structural things, such as access of young people to UN jobs or to positions that there are. And indeed, there is a long way that we need to go. Maybe starting with paid internships, which is still not always the case in the whole of the UN system. That's certainly one of the areas, and of course maybe also offering more internships and making the whole system of internships more flexible and easier to access. Yes, because the more difficult it is, the more complicated it is, the fewer young people will be able to do that. I'm not saying that, of course, we should not have any rules or any system. System is always good because it needs to be predictable, it needs to be sustainable, but it also needs to be flexible and open and not exclusive. It needs to be inclusive. Yeah, that's really important. Then another element is the JPOs. The junior professional officers. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that. There is this program is quite widespread around the UN system, that the various UN offices they gladly accept so-called junior professional officers, which is a great learning experience for young people who are starting their career, and they can be a JPO for 1 or 2 years, let's say, and of course then continuing their career. But there is only a handful of countries that support the JPOs because it's very expensive. And I can tell you, my own country, Slovakia, is not able right now, although I personally, and we have been pushing here from our mission in New York, really for at least for 4 years now, that we should have at least 1 or 2 JPOs that we should start with. But it's a financial issue often, and now COVID, of course, unfortunately, has further complicated things for us in terms of budgets and financing. But we should not give up, and we should look deeper into really how to also make the JPO program more flexible, more accessible, less expensive. Because if it's less expensive, then it would allow more young people to participate. Because it is very typical for countries such as Germany, Denmark, Japan, just to mention a few, to have a lot of JPOs. but you don't have countries from Africa or from Latin America doing the same, because it's very expensive. So we need to have a better look at that. You have probably heard that the President of the General Assembly has just launched his Youth Fellowship Program, where he is offering, or he will be offering, opportunities for a good number of young people. I don't know the number yet, because it depends on the budget, and of course he's inviting all member states to contribute to the budget. So we don't know the numbers yet, but really hoping that a lot of young people will be able to benefit from the youth fellowship in the UN system, but also at the missions in New York in particular. So maybe we'll be able to share more details about the youth fellowship program later. And last point is about the hierarchy of positions within the UN system. You know that technically the professional positions start with P1, and then it moves to P2, P3, P4, P5. That's the end of the P category. But in reality, there is no P1. So, I mean, technically or theoretically, it starts with P1, but in fact, in reality, it starts with P2. And that's maybe another thing that we need to revisit. Yeah? If we were able to again use P1, which means yes, a lower salary, but more opportunities, especially for young people, at least maybe for a year or two when they start their career. So you know, these are some of the practical aspects that we have been looking at.
Thanks so much for your answer. I guess I see Petra's hand, so we have as well questions in a row. So Petra, now you can go with your question.
Thank you, Nina. I'm sending warm regards from Ljubljana, as I'm right now on my Erasmus exchange. Hello, Mr. Ambassador. It's nice to see you again. First of all, a very, very big thank you from my side. It really warms my heart to hear that you are fighting for the paid internship, because I remember making my speech in 2019 when I was mentioning paid internship. And I would like to ask another question, really, regarding to positioning of young people in diplomacy. And it's from the other side. Now we've been speaking more about the economic stuff, what is of course understandable. But I would like to ask, because sometimes we as young people, as I may say, we have that feeling that all the leaders are not really welcoming us in their circles. And my question is, why do you think it's that happening? Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much, Petra. Lovely to see you. I didn't know you were in Ljubljana now, so wish you every success. Petra was the second youth delegate after we reinstated the youth delegate program. So it's great to see that it really works, that it's delivering on its results, and really I'm very happy to see that. Yes, leaders welcoming or not. I think it's partly the mindset and to a large extent also the extent of which individual countries have strong enough civil societies. It's not only related to youth, and that's at least my experience. Of course, you may be experiencing different situations as well. But I think, based on what I have seen, that if we successfully manage to strengthen civil society engagement in general, it really opens the doors largely also for young people, or women and girls and other stakeholders, of course included. But without greater civil society role and engagement, it's difficult, yes, because they and young people included, are then seen as potential danger or potential disruptors or potential people who question the policies or who are not necessarily supportive. But often these are ungrounded fears. And I am always an advocate of positive agenda, of positive solutions, of constructive approaches, because this is in my job description here at the UN. Look for solutions rather than criticize things or complain about things. And of course, you can only find solutions when you are constructive. So let's continue engaging collectively to show always also to leaders that opening up civil society space and space for young people and for other stakeholders is actually positive, because if they do it, it provides them with welcome inputs, with perspectives that for one reason or another they would not be able to get otherwise. Yeah. So of course it's not always possible, and sometimes campaigns need to be a little bit tougher. I don't mean political campaigns, but civic campaigns. But there is no alternative, and I think we can see it here at the UN more and more every year. This is my fifth session of the General Assembly that I have served here in New York as ambassador, and before as deputy ambassador. I spent another 5 years, and I can tell you that I really see sufficient progress or noticeable progress in us being able to respect young people's views and young people's participation, and more than that, that we are able to start listening and really start allowing young people to sit directly at the decision-making tables. I remember well that it started with Malala, and I'm sure you will remember. In a way, it started with Malala. Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General, invited Malala to one of the earlier General Assembly sessions, and she was seated there in the balcony as a guest. She was introduced. She was able to wave. We were all able to clap to welcome her, but that was it. There was not much more than that. It was just a bit of a show. If you excuse me for being a little bit expressive, maybe, but I'm just trying to make the point that it started with just a little bit of theater, with good intentions, with the best possible intentions. But of course, we need to move on, and we have already achieved a lot since then. Now we have youth delegates programs, we have youth fora. We have other fora with youth participation, and we are really opening up in a major way. Of course, we cannot stop. Yeah, we need to continue pushing. So I don't know, Petra, if I have any magic formula. Probably not. But I think it is only through activism, engagement, and advocacy that and through sharing best practices or even worst practices sometime that we can achieve those better results, because there needs to be that push, and hopefully that push will result in some real improvements.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your answer, and thank you so much for the question, Petra. I guess, yes, there is not maybe the magic formula, but what as well I think is that in the process, we shouldn't forget that we young people should empower each other and carry each other to be strong enough when we will not be no longer youth. So I guess that's the challenge for us, to be able to receive and get feedback, and as well to always reflect on why we do what we do. And I guess with this, uh, we will progress a lot. And now I will pass the mic to Ramiz with the question.
Thank you so much, Nino. Ambassador, thank you for your remarks, for insightful information about the UN and how young people can get involved. I have a lot of notes from your remarks, and one of those was how little is needed in order to support young people. And I agree with you that there isn't much needed in order to support young people to lead. But from my personal experience as a UNU delegate and as a youth activist for the past 6-7 years, and then later on working in this network with a big number of UNU delegates. Or, for example, most recently I traveled to Munich to attend the One Young World Summit, where there were 700 young people from 107 countries. And I'm continuously hearing from young people that they're not seen as critical partners, but as beneficiaries. And they don't want that. We as young people don't want to be on the table to be discussed. We want to be around the table. And there are also concerns about how symbolic youth participation is in some of the world's biggest platforms. For example, when I was a UNU delegate in 2018 and 19, I was the only person invited to speak at the UN Security Council. And then later on, the UN delegate from Afghanistan after me was also invited, but usually UNU delegates do not get the invitation to speak at the UN Security Council. And I think it's very important to give young people a space and a platform in important discussions and in rooms where there are difficult conversations, where there are discussions about global peace and security or economic development or gender equality, not just discussions about youth or young people, because the perspectives and the ideas of young people matter in each and every conversation, as you mentioned, that we need to have young people at all levels. And that should start from giving a chance to young people, mainly UNU delegates, to not just speak at the third committee, but also speak, for example, at the Security Council debates. Further to that, we are noticing a rise in global inequality. And we're also witnessing humanitarian crises happening around the world. And my home country, Afghanistan, is now the biggest humanitarian crisis. And people are looking at the United Nations. Their only hope is the United Nations. And while we are seeing a lot of debates, but lack of action. And I think the cost of inaction is always more than the cost of action. What message is the United Nations sending to people in those countries, mainly to young people in countries like Afghanistan? Afghanistan is the youngest country in Asia. Or what message should the United Nations be sending to young people while we're witnessing rise in inequality, or for example, the leadership failure that you mentioned in handling the COVID pandemic? And lastly, where I personally believe in the power of talking and listening, and that's why I'm really passionate and interested in our Youth in Diplomacy talks, because I think the world is facing complex problems that are very complicated, but sometimes politicians try to address complex challenges as technical problems. And we are also seeing that these complicated problems, we're failing to address these complicated problems at the top level through political decisions, or, for example, peace agreements that are being signed by politicians at the top level. So my question is how we can make our process more based on talking and listening to each other, and also create safe and open spaces, mainly for young people, to be able to discuss difficult topics, to address the real issues and the problem that they're facing. not just when politicians or leaders symbolically want to have them, but have them in real discussions and have them as partners and actually support them. We have heard from a lot of young people in our network through our consultations that due to lack of support, their ideas never become a reality. And we have personally faced that challenge, that there is really lack of support to young people and to youth-led organizations and initiatives.
Thanks very much, Ramiz. You have touched on a myriad of issues, and that's much appreciated. I do agree with you really in everything that that you have mentioned. Rising inequality, the cost of inaction, which is really much higher than cost of real practical policies, but what we are not used to measure. We are not used to measuring that, which is unfortunate. You know, we often have short-term policies rather than the long-term approaches, and that's the biggest challenge. But I think we are learning largely through or largely due to climate change. We have to move from short-term to long-term. Otherwise, we are really in trouble, and we are already in trouble. But if we don't change our behavior, I mean, for the long term, then we are in a very serious trouble. And of course, hopefully, you know, that will teach us, and we will learn how to favor those long-term solutions and strategic solutions as opposed to some quick fixes, or you know, some kind of bandaging our wounds. We can bandage the wound for a day or for a week, but we are not really often really treating the disease, and that's a big challenge. We have a responsibility, a joint responsibility, and it's great to see that young people want to be part of the solutions and part of the policies for the 1.8 billion young people in the world. Yeah? And of course, that number is growing and will be growing. But we have a blueprint, and the blueprint is the 2030 agenda. And even in the context of the pandemic, we have to be able to bring the 2030 agenda back to the forefront. And the UN is really working hard on that. You know, Secretary General Guterres, Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, I mean, they are so much committed to implementing the 2030 agenda and doing more. And this is where UN leadership really has to join forces with the young people. And that's part of the reason why Secretary General understands and realizes that that it is actually important also for him and for the whole UN system to include the young people more, and that it is actually for the benefit of all of us. Of course, I fully agree with what you said. You know, talking, listening, open spaces for young people as partners, not as you know, bystanders or as audience or anything like that, but young people as partners, as you know, people who are directly involved in all the processes. And here I also want to add one more perspective, and this is the important role of the cities and of the local authorities. I think the pandemic has further emphasized that of course it is you know, the young people in the local context that need to be even more involved, you know, in solutions and in activism and in all that. I have seen previously when I served in Nairobi, I was also serving as president of the Governing Council of UN Habitat, which is the agency responsible for urbanization, for sustainable cities, for involvement of local governments. And I have seen some practical projects that are implemented in countries such as Colombia and many others, many in Africa, where young people are really involved through youth advisory councils, through youth patrols or youth watchdog initiatives in really bringing about change to their own communities. I visited one particular project in Bucaramanga in Colombia, where, you know, in that particular community, previously there was a lot of crime, like small crime, street crime, and related violence. And it is the young people who were somehow involved and included in changing the situation. And in fact, they were the ones who were able to tell to their fathers or uncles that it needs to change. Yeah, that this is no way forward. Yeah, it's not easy, and of course it doesn't happen on its own. Young people need to be empowered. They need to be you know, allowed to play a role. But then if they do, they can even kind of keep their own superiors, their own fathers under control, which was amazing. Of course, it's just a small example, but I think it illustrates well that that it can work. So if we, and that's a critical component of Secretary General Guterres's Our Common Agenda report, that the cities, the local authorities need to be more involved in the UN processes, as well as the young people. And this is, I think, a win-win situation, because often it is easier to engage young people on the local level. Yeah. Of course, there is nothing wrong about national level or regional, global level, but of course, it was mentioned earlier, it needs to be this bottom-up approach, and if that's the case, then it is more sustainable, more inclusive, and then it has a greater impact, as opposed to you know, the other approach where you are kind of imposing potentially some solutions from the national level, and you know, where people don't necessarily always feel the same ownership, because it's also about ownership of these initiatives that young people need to feel. So I'm not sure if I provided any answers, but I at least tried to you know, offer additional perspectives, and that you know, as I said, indeed this is a two-way street, or for me also it's a two-way experience. It's a great learning experience also, and I'm very much open to it, and this is the nature of this kind of engagement.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for the answer, and Ramis for the question. As we are going to the end of our discussion, I have two kind of personal questions, and would ask you to go back to your 20s and remember your younger self. So what is the question about is that we all meet different challenges, difficulties, and we, I guess, all have our own techniques how to handle that, how to not get disappointed, and have to find the strength to again get up and continue striving for the better. So what, first question is, what was something that helped you to always find the strength and stay true to your values and to the mission that you had as a person? And second question would be, what advice would you give to yourself in 20s?
Yes, thanks very much, Nino. Before going to that, let me just briefly touch on what I see in the chat. Yes, that indeed in the youth delegate program there is a prevalence of global north at the expense of the global south, and it's true. We have very few youth delegates who are from the global south for financial reasons, but for other reasons as well. And I remember a few of us discussed earlier several times that maybe it would not be difficult, and some countries are already doing it, but it would not be difficult even for a country like Slovakia, which is not among the richest and not among the largest, but it's not always the size and the richness of the country that makes a difference. You know, there are other areas which we have to take into account as well. But what I'm trying to say is that in fact we have agreed earlier, but it was before COVID, and now maybe COVID has complicated things a little bit, that we need as developed countries, or as countries of the global north, that maybe we should create a fund, or we should commit ourselves that okay, if we have 2 youth delegates ourselves every year, that maybe we can support at least 1 or 2 from other countries, from the global south in particular, and it's doable. And of course, we can create opportunities for others. I know that in my own country there were discussions that maybe through our development cooperation we can create the same opportunities for a few countries from Africa. But as I said, this was before COVID, so then things got a bit more complicated. But we should revisit the issue, and maybe that's one of the ways. So please help me in spreading that idea, and maybe encouraging donors or developed countries to also do something like that, and we can make a little bit of a difference. Yes, and the question was what advice, yes, or what helps me keep going every day in a way, yes. What helps me keep going is not the cup of tea or the cup of coffee that I drink every morning, but it is really trying to see beyond the horizon, and I always have personally a philosophy that we should not look back, we should not dwell too much in the past and in yesterday. Of course we should look beyond and try to see where we are heading. And I'm asking myself on a daily basis, I mean, is there anything that I have really achieved today? Is there anything really that makes sense? And I mean, somehow, this philosophy keeps me pushing more and more. I'm also a father, and I see it in the eyes of my daughters that that I need to think about how to offer additional opportunities to them, and through them also to others. So that's my personal philosophy, and the advice, and maybe it has to do a little bit with the fact that I used to be a teacher, because once you have it in your DNA, as they say, once a teacher, always a teacher. And I'm also son of a teacher and husband of a teacher, so somehow I cannot escape. but it gives me the additional perspective really on a daily basis. And the advice would be really not to take things for granted. I think that's something that is important to all of us. As I mentioned in the beginning, I grew up in the communist regime, and all around me there was gray, there was despair, and there was frustration. And of course, it was not a very feasible environment for seeing beyond all that. It was not easy, but somehow even at that time, and of course immediately after the political changes, I thought that we really need to invest energy into bringing about the necessary changes, and as I said, serving the people. And I keep reminding myself that it was not such a long time ago that we didn't have that we didn't have what we have today. And it is our moral duty to continue pushing and changing things. And also, I can add that as a diplomat, I don't spend too much time in my own country. In fact, we only come home to Slovakia once a year for a few weeks. In fact, during the COVID, or due to COVID, we didn't go home for a year and a half, and it was frustrating. But what I'm trying to say is that whenever I come back home, it is a bit of a reality check for me. And whether it's returning from New York, or previously it was returning from Nairobi, Kenya, I have learned to appreciate more what we have achieved, or what we have in my own country. In Slovakia, we are traditionally complaining, and maybe Petra and others would be able to relate to that. We are professional complainers. We like criticizing, complaining about things that don't work and all that. Maybe there is a good, of course, it's not a very positive feature of character, because it's frustrating and depressing, and then somehow you end up feeling negative about everything, and it's not good. But maybe it forces us to try to change things. Yeah? Or I mean, we should use that energy for those necessary changes, which we don't always do. But really, my point here is that by seeing what you have and appreciating what you have, you should get the energy to try to help others reach the same level, or even better, because there is also a well-known philosophy that if your neighbor is prosperous, then your own situation is getting more prosperous, and we often forget about that. Of course, the philosophy of national egoism, or of my country first, is a disaster. And let me put it that way. Yes, certainly that's not something that I can relate to.
I guess it's internet issues with the ambassador. Yeah.
I believe that.
Something happened. I don't know what happened.
Welcome back, Master.
Welcome back.
Did you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your answer. And I guess that was one of the most insightful talks that we had. And I couldn't agree even more with whatever you said. And I do believe that everything is an energy. Complaining takes energy. Disappointment is an energy. Laziness is an energy. But in the end of the day, we have to, like before going sleep, we need to reflect and make sure that we're mature enough and transmit all the energy into creating better versions of ourselves. And if every human being thinks like that, together we create stronger environment. And the synergy of one individual and the environment always gives a positive outcome. But that's a very long-term thing, I guess, and we all need to think like that. So thank you for saying all those things, and I'm very happy that Slovakia has ambassador like that, and with that kind of philosophy and mindset. And with this, I will pass the mic to Ramis to close our space, and we are going to the end.
Thank you very much, Nino. Thank you, Ambassador, for your time, for joining us. I personally learned a lot, and we have this on our Facebook. We're going to share it with other young people and other UNU delegates. I just wanted to add to what you mentioned, Ambassador, about the UNU delegate program in the Global South in more countries. The UNU delegate program in Afghanistan is such an example. So the UNU delegate program in Afghanistan in 2018 and 19 was initiated by the Embassy of the Netherlands in Afghanistan and their mission in New York. And I think it was a very, very successful initiative. And it did not end it with that support. It did not end it with me being the UNU delegate, the first UNU delegate, but it continued. And the program was later on supported by other countries, for example, the mission of Germany. And I think it's really feasible for other countries to support and launch the program in countries that they do not have the UNU delegate program currently. And then it will continue. There will be young people who will push for it, who will lobby for the program, which will be continued. One of our missions in our network is to improve and expand the UNU delegate program to more countries. So it's one of our core missions and one of our key pillars in the network to make sure that more countries, and at the end of the day, all countries have an active UNU delegate program, so that we do not create more inequalities and address basically these inequalities. My last statement is that our mission in this network is to mobilize young people to work together. And we believe that we cannot improve in one part of the world unless we have everyone from other part of the world to work together and address the problems that we are facing. There's a lot to see as problems, but there's a lot to see as solutions. And we young people are focused on those solutions, and we're working hard to make the world a better place. Lika, the floor is yours. And thank you one more time, Ambassador, and everyone for joining us. Lika.
Some short insights. Thank you again, Ambassador, for a very interesting conversation and a lot of really important ideas that we discussed today. I do believe that difficult situations push us to evolve. This pandemic has had a very big impact on each and every one's life. For some of us, this pandemic was a push to start bringing young people together from different corners of the world. We started Zoom calling all our friends in different parts of the world, and that's how this idea came to life. And it's not a regular network. It's a network that hopes to use all the expertise that youth delegates have from different years, from different parts of the world, to contribute to making the United Nations a better place. And we do hope that we can stay in touch and call you, Ambassador, the friend of our network, because we would need some friendships like that moving on in the future. And thank you for your time and for being with us here today.
Thanks very much to all of you for this fascinating discussion, and certainly it's great to have those friendships and those alliances. Best wishes to you in your advocacy and activism, and in your studies, of course. Yes, let's stay in touch. I look forward to doing that. Best wishes. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good rest of the day. and best wishes to you as well.